7.3 to Huia developments. And we've got Joe, and I think James Llewellyn is online. Joe.
Thank you, Chair. I'm going to pass this over to James Llewellyn online to provide an extensive update on the current report. James.
Welcome, James.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Chair. Thanks very much for the opportunity.
Can't hear you very well.
Okay, can I speak up a bit? Is that better? Yeah, hopefully you can hear me okay.
We're just increasing it in the chamber.
Okay.
Okay. Can you speak again and see how it is?
Yeah, let's try again. Can you hear me okay?
That's a bit better.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity to just run you through some brief highlights from the report. So the report is divided effectively into three key projects that really hold the future to Huia. The first of those projects is a single stage business case which aims to set out the future vision and service improvements that we believe are necessary to transform Te Huia from what it is now, which is a very good and functional service, into something that is actually much more transformative in terms of service frequency and also journey speed between Hamilton, Auckland and all the locations along the way. So the purpose of this business case is to set out that long-term vision and demonstrate that further investment in improving Te Huia will actually deliver significant benefits in excess of costs. That's the purpose of any business case. And in essence, we're looking at increasing service frequencies, potentially up to hourly. We're looking at a maximum city centre to city centre journey time of no longer than 2 hours, ideally shorter than that. And also we're looking at new stations. Pocono and Tuakau are highlighted as the main locations for additional stations to increase the accessibility to Huia, and also new rolling stock. And this is perhaps one of the key projects. So the existing Te Huia rolling stock, they are ex-British Rail 1970s Mark II carriages, and whilst they were built to last, they won't last forever. And so whatever happens with the future of Te Huia, getting new rolling stock to a modern standard and modern safety standards is particularly important. So this business case effectively will look at all of these issues and come up with a medium to long-term plan about how these improvements are delivered and how they are funded and financed. And that's going to be one of the key aspects to all of this work. So that's project one. Project two is much more here and now. So this is the Te Huia end of trial review. So you'll be aware that Te Huia as a trial finishes at the end of June 2026, and staff are now preparing for submitting the final end of trial review report to NZTA. And the idea of that report is to demonstrate that Te Huia has met the key performance indicators and targets that were set for it at the time of the business case approval, and then to make a good case for continuation of the service beyond the trial period. And that really is the critical issue here. So we'll be looking to submit a first draft of our end of trial review towards the end of the year, and then the final draft would be in around March or April next year, because the trial effectively finishes at the end of June, and we'll clearly need confirmation around the future for that trial by then and no later than then. So that's the end of trial review. The third project is around what happens on the assumption that there is a permanent service for Te Huia after June 2026. What are the potential options for any changes to that service, broadly speaking, within existing funding. So this is separate from the first item, which was about the medium to longer term. This is about what happens post June 2026. So essentially, we'll be looking at a series of options, one of which will be to keep the services pretty much as they are. Other options will consider alternative service configurations, which might mean more frequent services, but between Hamilton and Pukekohe. At the moment, we don't have any firm view as to what the optimum service might be. And one of the key pieces of work we'll be commissioning very soon is a demand forecasting exercise, which will enable us to work out what our current passengers and future passengers would ideally like to see. And that demand forecasting work will support both projects 1 and projects 3. So looking at the short term and the medium to longer term. Because fundamentally, as someone said earlier, it is all about getting more bums on seats and being able to demonstrate that Te Huia can make a significant contribution to meeting travel demand in the Hamilton to Auckland corridor. So that's just a very brief summary of those 3 projects, and happy to take more detailed comments and questions through you, Chair.
Okay, thanks, James. Anything you wish to add, Joe?
No, I think James has summed it up very nicely. Thank you, James.
Okay. Angela S.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you, James, for your work on this. Sounds like a really heavy workload in the coming months. Yeah. Just wanted to ask a couple of questions around the options that you've delivered, and also in light of cementing the Te Huia as a permanent service, and then also the vision that's been cast as well for it to go beyond connecting just Waikato and Auckland as well. The potential for it to go, Bay of Plenty, connecting the Golden Triangle. So my question would be, you've outlined some of the options, and you've said that the service has got 1 year left in the trial. With the NRTF funding round, NRTP, could you just outline what would be the benefits of aligning with that funding process?
Yes, I certainly can. Through the chair, I think one of the key challenges we have is that the trial is now scheduled to end in June 2026, which is 1 year before the next NLTP period. So one potential option would be to agree an extension to the trial for another 12 months with NZTA. And what that would enable us all to do would be to actually get on with all of that business case work, firstly, and have it all completed. So there is a compelling investment proposal for the next NLT period and indeed beyond. Also, that trial extension would potentially enable other service configurations that I mentioned earlier to be tested, potentially, to see whether there is a positive change to passenger demand, for example, by having more frequent services, but them travelling between Hamilton and Pukekohe, where people can then transfer onto the AT network. And of course, the service now from Pukekohe post electrification is an awful lot better than it used to be. So there are attractions of that option. But being able to look at those and try them out with another 12 months is something we could certainly look at without making any commitments at this stage. So that's, for me, really the key challenge is, can we at least get a trial extension, or if not, can we secure that permanent service through the end of trial and review? And that's what we'll be working on. Just touching on the wider question around extension of services to other parts of the region and indeed across to the Bay of Plenty. I'm sure you've all seen the press reports that have been coming through in the last few days about that, and in particular the Green Party's announcement about their policy on the subject. For us, I think it's important that firstly, any work that is undertaken is done in conjunction with our colleagues at Bay of Plenty Regional Council, because they will clearly have an interest and views around the benefits and indeed costs of a service from Tauranga through the Kaimai Tunnel over to Hamilton and then on to Auckland. And also it's important that we do a piece of work which really tries to nail down the problems that in regional rail will solve that, say, for example, buses that we provide already can't solve. So whilst, in principle, I think we're very interested in exploring the extension of services to other parts of the region and over to the Bay of Plenty, we've got to do that within a solid business case context, which is what NZTA and indeed our stakeholders would expect us to do. So all of that work we're looking to try and progress. We clearly have to prioritise as well, given our resource issues. So, it's something we'll happily discuss further as we move on.
Phil, you want to add to that?
So just to add 2 comments to that. The first is that the terms of the NZTA board approval for the Te Huia trial are very clear. So any change to that would require a process that would involve the agency board. The second one is just to add to James's comment around the regional connections. Our regional land transport plan and our regional PT plan talk about wanting to embed and then enhance the role of regional and interregional rail. So the discussion on expansion is consistent with our policy direction, subject to it being attractive and deliverable from a business case perspective. The similar documents that the Bay of Plenty will have their own policy position, and I suspect that there will need to be some work done to align those, and that's the basis of moving forward.
Further questions, Angela?
Yes.
That's all right.
Just left my mind. Can I have another?
I can go to Anthony and come back to you, Anthony.
Thank you. Just some comments around the replacement of rolling stock, basically. As I understand it at the moment, there are only 2 places available for wheelchair users, which have to be pre-booked. And not just the places have to be booked, but also the use of a hoist to get on and off the train. So I just thought it would be a great opportunity when that rolling stock is being replaced, if they could not only increase the numbers of spaces available, but also if we could do away with the hoist altogether and have a roll-on, roll-off situation, so we could make it that much easier for people who are using wheelchairs to actually access the train.
Phil?
Absolutely. And any new vehicle would be level with the platform heights of the Upper North Island. So
Excellent.
you would be able to get on and off at any carriage door.
Yeah.
The hoist is a requirement because there is a difference between the 1970s standard and the platform heights that we operate to at the moment.
Okay.
Absolutely, there would be no need for that in future rolling stock.
That'd be great. Okay, thank you.
Angela, you found.
Yeah. Okay. James, you mentioned that future vision of sort of addresses most of the criticisms that are around Te Huia at the moment, that it's too slow, it doesn't stop in the right places, etc., etc. We've seen within Auckland when Britomart opened, just the what that enabled from moving mass amounts of people as well. Just looking ahead to what Hamilton infrastructure might be needed in order for that vision to be enabled for a city, for a centre-to-centre service, and then also electrification between Hamilton and Pukekohe is the other sort of handbrake at the moment. Could you just touch on those 2 things, please?
I certainly can. So through the chair, I'll deal with the second item first. So we are aware that Kiwi Rail are in the process of finalising a business case for electrification of the line from Tauranga through Hamilton and up to Pukekohe, where the current electrified system currently starts or ends. So that piece of work could be a game changer in terms of the options that we would have for a rolling stock, because at the moment, because we have a section of line that is not electrified, then the current business case would be assuming that there'd have to be a hybrid battery electric or possibly battery diesel set of rolling stock, which is not ideal in my view compared to full electrification, which has been proven to be, from a passenger and an operational perspective, the preferred way to go for powering trains, particularly for longer distances where batteries have some challenges. So if that business case is ultimately funded by the government, it will represent a significant improvement to the capability of that line. It will allow, for example, trains to accelerate and decelerate much quicker. There's obviously emissions benefits, all that kind of stuff. So that is certainly something that we would be looking to support, both for Te Huia and indeed for any future services over towards Warrensville and then the Kaimais. So that's the first issue. So getting back to your first question about Hamilton, the challenge we have at the moment, as we all know, is that Frankton Station is a junction station. It's not well located, particularly for the city centre, and especially if there were a future service for Te Huia that was more frequent, say hourly, then it would make a lot more sense for there to be a more centrally located station, perhaps in addition to Frankton. And certainly if you were looking at extending services out to Warrensville and then over to Tauranga, again, you would also want a city centre station, because it would be no good if the train went all the way through the city without stopping, only to then go to Frankton. So, the key question, which is something that will require much more discussion with colleagues from the City Council and stakeholders, are what are the opportunities for a new central station in Hamilton to support that longer term service. Now, that's something that the business case needs to start looking at, but we're conscious that there's a lot of work already going on in the city centre, and we need to be mindful of the plans that are already in place, but work closely with our colleagues to see what options do exist to locate a central station which can be much more accessible to all the land uses in that area. So it's certainly something that's on our radar.
Thank you for that. And my last comment would just be to, just really agree with the new rolling stock, that it does need to be really accessible for all people, and it's a great opportunity as well, if it is battery electric, to enable, being able to go right into Britomart or through the Kaimai Tunnel as well. But yeah, thank you for your work, and I'll leave my comments there.
Chair Pamela.
Kia ora, James. Hey, thanks for that. And just following on from your comments around the business case for electrification, given that we as a region have been collectively advocating for electrification of this piece of line for a considerable amount of time, as we have within Future Proof, is there opportunity to provide some additional support, letters of support? Is there anything that we can do around while they're developing this business case that might, I don't know, grease the skids? I think that's a technical term.
Yeah, through the chair, I certainly think that any support that can be provided by regional council, whether that's councillors or senior officers at whatever level, would no doubt really help Kiwi Rail, who I'm fairly sure would like to see progress made on electrification, because the challenge you have is that if you don't electrify, then you have to buy diesel locomotives that have, you know, a 30 to 40 year asset life, and that in this day and age is probably not something that that many rail operators would want to contemplate. So electrification will provide a clear signal that the future is much cleaner and greener. And so, yes, any opportunities that I think we have to constructively support Kiwi Rail would be very much welcome.
Yeah, because of course, it's not just in terms of our messaging, it's also in terms of the regional deal application that recently went in, and that electrification of this piece of line not only supports interregional passenger rail, but also supports efficient movement of freight between our major ports in the Upper North Island. So whether that's a letter of support from Waikato Regional Council, whether it's a letter of support from Future Proof, I suppose I'm going to just defer to staff as to how best to show our support in a demonstrable way, but I would certainly advocate for us to do that.
Cool. Always.
So the piece I would add to the discussion is that the Kiwi Rail are a member of the Regional Transport Committee and have provided several updates to that committee on progress with the business case on electrification. So the aspiration is that they will present an update, a detailed update on the final report before the triennium ends. That's the action that sits there on that committee at the moment. We've certainly, via those conversations, there has been very strong support expressed to Kiwi Rail. But if you chose to put that in writing from this organisation or from Future Proof, I think that would be it would add to the level of support that there has been from the region.
Yes, I think we can have some discussions and look at that from a future-proof perspective, yes. Because I think there's enough, given what you've raised, Chair Pamela, plus other things to actually hang a partnership support on also, in addition to any individual support from a partner.
And I also wonder, sorry to butt in, from a connectivity interregional point of view, whether with your connection over the hill with Smart Growth, whether that is something that could be strengthened as well. And
certainly there are some pending opportunities in terms of doing that, Angela. Okay, any other questions or comments? Anything in conclusion, James?
No, thank you, Chair. No, that was a really good discussion, and yeah, we just committed as the staff to working with all of the stakeholders to try and make as much progress we can and keep the momentum going. You know, Huia has demonstrated what is possible, and we feel there's a lot more that can be done in the future. And yeah, really happy to be working with everyone on that. So thank you.
No, thank you. And just reiterating, thanks for the. Oh, sorry, Adrian.
That's all right. Just noting that the article in the Waikato Times this morning, obviously I was interviewed. They didn't perhaps expand on what I'd said. But obviously a business case. But there's an opportunity there. But in the article, it actually mentioned one of the people they interviewed had been on the train back in the day, and I'd also done the same with my children. So, you know, there is an opportunity at some stage, and it is going to be an interesting development, because getting through to Tauranga, the Kaimai Tunnel is the pinch point, and there's freight. So let's see how that, understand the whole concept and see how it might work in the future, and supporting Te Huia. You know, like it's as well as it's not on its own. So connectivity is key.
Okay, thank you. So thanks very much, James, for the work in presenting this morning. If there's nothing else, I'll move to the recommendation to receive the report on Te Huia developments. If I can have a mover and seconder for that, please. Thanks, Eugene. Okay, thanks, Mayor Adrian. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Against, carried. Okay, thank you. Thanks, Joe and Brian. And we'll move to item 7.4, travel time reliability measures, page 58. And welcome, Vincent. Are you by yourself or do you have friends?
Oh, yes. I've got Melissa joining online.
Okay.
So she's the author of the technical report, and she will be online. If there's any technical questions, I might direct some of the technical questions to her.
Welcome, Melissa.
So good morning,
Good
Chair
morning.
and the committee members. So I'm here today to talk about the travel time reliability report. So with your permission, Chair, I would like to take the report as read, and just to give a brief summary of the report.
That's fine. Thank you.
So just for context setting, as reported at the last meeting, so the staff have been reviewing our current travel time reliability measures with the aim to ensure our reporting is fit for purpose, and then the information we provided is an accurate reflection of what's happening on the ground in terms of travel time delays. The key findings are included in the technical report attached to the attachment 1. And in summary, I think the key things we just want to highlight is that the report has done a bit of benchmarking against the travel time reliability measure across all the other PTAs. And we found that whilst other regions have adopted the same punctuality measures or definition that was published by NZTA, which is bus arriving not early than 1 minute and no later than 5 minutes to a scheduled bus stop, but the actual applications varies across the regions. For example, AT, they use the same -1 + 5 measure, but only report on the first and last bus stops of a bus route. Whereas for Waikato, we actually monitor across all bus stops. And I think the graph in your report, I think on page 59, really helped to illustrate the difference. So we use the same Waikato data set, but apply with the Auckland transport measures, and you will see the result. There's a vast difference in terms of the output of the result, indicating that sometimes if there's depending on how you define the measure, you get a very different output. So notwithstanding the regional difference, we believe our current reporting framework is the most sophisticated, and it's more accurate representation of what customers are currently experiencing. For this reason, we are not suggesting to move away from our current framework. Instead, we are looking to introduce new information from the same data set to help strengthen our reporting. So there are 3 things we're looking to introduce. The first thing is the excess waiting time. So we want to start report the excess waiting time against our high frequency bus route. So the Comet, Orbiter and Meteor. Because our high frequency service are operating in the 15-minute frequency, it is important to report on the actual wait time of the service. as bus timetables sometimes are less relevant for passengers because the expectation is bus should arrive within 15 minutes of a scheduled time. Second thing we are looking to add to our current reporting is the average and standard deviation values to our current reporting. It may sound complicated, but in simple words, what we're trying to provide is a bit more context to the actual values of our current travel time. For example, like 40% of our regional services are arriving outside of that +1 and -5 window. But what does that mean? What's the average travel time delays? Or what's the spread of the delays? So by adding those values, help to kind of provide the further context that you needed to understand the information. And the last things we wish to add is we want to start present this travel time information at the route level. So going forward, we want to use the graph on page 62 as a way to help illustrate our information. I think currently we only report at the network level. So sometimes some of the information is buried and it's harder to distinguish in terms of the performance by route. And sometimes there's outliers within your network. So it's not easily picked up through the network information. So I think those are the three things we're looking to introduce in your next reporting as part of the standard PT operation report.
Okay, thanks, Vincent. Angela.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Vincent and Melissa, for your work on this. Yeah, it's quite nice to see maths in action. Yeah, there's some quite complicated equations there. Yeah, I just really advocate for seeing this data at a route level. Seeing it as a whole is not really helpful when you want to drill down into what infrastructure needs there might be, what bus priority needs there might be. And we're talking the quick, easy ones such as, traffic lights, priority.
Okay,
So you're really good to see. And also seeing that graph on page 59 as well, the way that we have been reporting against what other regions are currently reporting as well. It's quite a difference in reporting there. So really good to see that we're going from more of a customer focus and experience as well. So thank you for your work here.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Phil.
I just wanted to acknowledge the staff in the team that have undertaken this work. This was all undertaken in-house by us. We now have a team with the skills to do this work within the organisation, and it's fabulous to see that starting to come through in terms of the questions that you've been asking us as a committee. So,
Okay, there's nothing further. A recommendation on page 58 to receive the report. Can have a mover and seconder for that. Thanks, Angela. Me, Adrian. There's nothing further. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. And thanks, Vincent, and thanks, Melissa, and just reiterating the work of the team in terms of producing this information. We'll now move to the final agenda item, 7.5, the public transport operations update. Okay, welcome, Kana. So are you kicking off, Vincent? Kana is. Okay.
Chair and the committee members, I am here today to speak about public transport operations report. With your permission, Chair, I would like to take the report as read and highlight a few things from the report.
That's fine.
Thank you. Really quick. As you notice, I changed the report format. I made it more concise. And as Vince told, we are not adopting the new metric yet. So it's following the our standard so far. In Q1 this year, overall sub-regional bus patronage has increased by 3.4% from the same quarter last year. Wiper has been growing strongly, while other services growth rate have tapered off. As we reported in February, lower patronage growth is influenced by the fare increase that has taken place July last year, and also the fact that no major improvements in the network have been made for a year. Exception is Wiper. Huia patronage has dropped by 18%. This is because of the 1 month closure of the service in January. That actually started from Christmas and ended in 28th January. Looking at fare revenue, this quarter, both bus and rail fare revenues increased by 15%. Lastly, I would like to bring positive news. The open tender to engage a media agency to manage the bus backspace is being closed. The proposal, we received 2 proposals in March, Go Media and MediaWorks. And after the tender evaluation, we chose MediaWorks. And this tender reveals that we have an opportunity to generate significantly greater revenue as a minimum annual guarantee. That is much higher than we initially anticipated. We are currently shaping the contract with MediaWorks and aiming to commence the contract in June. Yeah, back to you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Angela.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for the report. Just had a question around the bus back advertising. I know that through our PTP, thanks to Councillor O'Leary's push for us to receive this revenue as well, we also talked about those signs for the courtesy signs for letting the buses go first. Can you just update us where we're at with that? Because I'm noticing quite a bit of new advertising on our back buses, which is fantastic. Can you just update us where we're at with getting that courtesy sign big enough and in the right place for vehicles to perhaps let our buses jump back into traffic so they can keep going? That would be my first question, and then I've got another one. But
we haven't had a standard size of the sign yet. So after we engage MediaWorks, we definitely discuss about it. Yeah, and we try to make it, obvious as much as possible. But sometimes we, because of advertisers' request, we might compromise. But yeah,
Can you turn off your microphone, Kana, and Vincent?
So in terms of the tender, it's actually included in the tender sort of process. So we have explicitly noted that we need the inclusion of the courtesy sign. We also provided the kind of the design sample of what we want to make sure that's being included as part of this tender. So I guess, yeah, I don't have the information at hand, but I'm happy to share in terms of the design concept that we have shared with the media agency around where that kiddie sign will be placed.
Yeah.
At the bus back, but that's actually been quite explicit with our tender.
Oh, good to hear. Yeah, I did see one sample, and I believe it was maybe on a Hamilton City Council ad on one of the back of the buses. But following behind in my vehicle, it was a little bit small and possibly in the wrong place. But yeah, keen to see that mock-up moving forward. And just also, are we limited to just the bus backs? I know through central government's push for more revenue, non-fare revenue, there was talk of, and I've seen in other regions where the buses are, the windows are wrapped, the sides of the buses are quite heavily laden with advertising. Are we sort of limiting ourselves? Is that the sort of scope of just the bus back within our region?
So at this stage, it's only limited to bus stop. And I think the main reason being that our current RPTP policy, I think it's pretty clear, like the focus is really around the bus back. In terms of full wrap, I think this will be case by case at this stage. So unless there's a review around the policy setting,
Okay.
at the moment it's really just limited to bus stops.
Okay. So something to maybe note for when we do go through, when the next council goes through the. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I've got Roger, Mayor Adrian, and Pro in that order.
Thank you. I don't know, is my microphone on? I can see it red. That's excellent. Good, thank you. And I'd just like to acknowledge the investment that's been made in both Cambridge and TA and the growth that's, as you've reported, occurring there. But I think what is equally as important is the flexibility that you've already shown in the definition of that allocation of resource. So although the initial introduction was towards an expanded program of departures to and from Hamilton, you've subsequently said, well, perhaps we can change that and introduce an extension to some of the existing service out to the high school in Cambridge, instead of perhaps having some of the later services that were not strongly used. So I'd just like to acknowledge that it's great to see that you're flexible in the allocation and meeting the demand. And it's going to be really interesting to see the usage of that service out to the high school. I suppose it's a bit too early yet to see the response. It's only been going for possibly a couple of weeks.
Yeah, so it was only introduced in mid-April. So yeah, we will be able to report back at the next meeting.
Yeah, that will be good. And I'd just like to support Liz's earlier comment and Angela's support of I think the importance of working as soon as possible on a business plan for the introduction of some form of local Cambridge transport without being definitive as yet on what that form is, but the importance of us working together on a business plan. So, and thank you for coming along and speaking with us. It was great. Really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Yeah, Adrian.
Hi, thank you, Chair. Just a question around, obviously, the Eastern Connector. It's sort of going in the opposite direction to everybody else. There was a minus, obviously, in its numbers for patronage. Can you shed any light, like where's because obviously there's this connector is multiple towns. It's not in isolation. Can you shed any light on why it might have been? Because it doesn't really, with the previous quarter ones, if you look back at quarter ones, it doesn't align. So any scheduling issues or?
No, I don't have any information to add as to the reason why we are seeing a bit of decline this quarter, but our team will work with local staff just to see if there's any intel that we can share, whether there's, roadworks or any other factors that may have influenced the patronage for this quarter.
Yeah, because I guess the try not to look at things in isolation, but just how the changes in patronage, perhaps from the Matamata to Morrinsall through service, that might change with the beginning of a school year, whether there's less students now catching that bus from there. Just to understand that with the rescheduling, obviously with the timetable change in the last quarter last year. So whether that is, I'm interested to understand, because obviously we're still in that trial phase and really want to optimise the opportunity of the demand for public transport across the Matamata Piako district. But be good to understand.
I think because the reporting is based on quarter, so we're comparing the same time last quarter. So we're trying to remove all the seasonal sort of variance. But we'll look into in terms of if there's any particular reasons that may have contributed to the decline. Yep.
Yeah, and quarter two will obviously might help inform that as well, because looking at things in isolation does, I get that. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela O.
Thank you. I did have two questions, but my namesake asked one, and we did, just to comment on it, we did have quite a robust discussion about it. And I guess my expectation is it'd be good to see what mock-ups is that the bottom of the bus. There's really big letters really clearly, like the good old days. Please make way for the bus. So I do actually want to see that. I don't recall it was a formal motion around the table. That might have just been a staff action. However, what a formal motion was, and I haven't seen anything come back, and also this is probably part of process question for governance, because I'm assuming the recommendations from this committee go to WRC, so it may have been lost there. But in August 23, I proposed a motion to take 100,000 from revenue from advertising to put towards annual pilot programs that would contribute to mode shift, but it may have been lost as a recommendation when it went to full WRC. So I'm just wondering, as a staff action, you won't be able to answer this now, can you circle back to my records to find out what happened to that? Because obviously it was a motion that was successful and had support, unless you can speak to it now, Paul.
I can't, but we'll definitely look into it for you.
2 years ago, so thank you. But yeah, looking forward to seeing what that bus back advertising, because I think it's really important. Yeah, people are getting angrier on our roads, and we don't need that, especially for PT. Thank you.
There's no further questions or comments. Anything in conclusion, Vincent?
No. Other than I think it's in terms of the patronage. I think council was looking to introduce another fee change on 1 July, so there could be a further impact around the patronage numbers going forward, and something probably worth noting.
Okay. Move to the recommendation, which is on page 82 of your agenda, to receive the Public Transport Operations Update Report. If I can have someone to move and second receipt of that. Thanks, Angela. Thanks, Mayor Adrian. There's nothing further. I'll put that. All those in favour say aye. Against, carried. Thanks, Kana. Thanks, Vincent. That brings us to conclusion of today's meeting. Thanks, everyone. And just a reminder, our last meeting, I had the date, is in August 15th. Thanks. And so per my earlier comment in terms of staff just checking in terms of what's on the agenda and then the time allocation for the meeting. Otherwise, thanks very much. Thanks for your input, and Brock, are you going to close us, please?
Unahia mai te uru tapanui. Ke wātea, ke mama, te nākau, te tinana, te hininaro, e te ara takatu, koia rā e runga, e whakairira ake ke runga, ke tina, haumie huie taike.
Yeah. Thank you. Meeting closed. And there's lunch in the tui room.